Calling our city commission meeting to order at 5:30 p.m. At this time, we're going to ask that Chaplain Frank Stevens of the Lynn Haven Police Department, if he would come and lead us in our prayer and pledge of allegiance.
For our city leaders as they have the responsibility to watch over our city, the city of Lynn Haven. And Lord, just as you told Prophet Ezekiel that you had made him a watchman for the people of that nation, we pray that you will bless our city leaders as they guide and direct this city to prosper it. We pray for a blessing over the city employees as they are serving the citizens of this city throughout the days and the weeks ahead. Bless them and keep them safe. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chaplain Stevens. At this time, we'll have our public commentary.
Hi, Jody Moore on Amherst Street. Just a couple of questions and comments about a few things. First of all, going back to what I was talking about before when we had the hearings, the meetings that we just had, the two meetings we had. I really appreciate the transparency and going over the budget. I also appreciate some of the good things that have happened in the city since this commission took office. I appreciate the plat, going back to the 9/11 plat. The 1911 plat. I also appreciate, the push towards beautification that's happened. There's been some good things happening in the city, the ditches getting dug out. All of those are good things. I would like to just talk about a couple of things. And hang on, I'm trying to remember one of the things I wanted to ask about. First of all, under new business, just a comment that the Mill Bayou project, the engineer is Panhandle Engineering that's proposed for that. I also wanted to talk about the mural that's going on the water tank that's been proposed. I'm pro beautification in Lynn Haven, so I supported this myself, even though I don't live in the city limits, but I want it to look pretty. There have been some comments back and forth. Some people are calling it mural gate. People don't necessarily like the design. Some people like the designs that have been proposed. Some people don't like it. I would actually like to propose that there be a workshop so that people could come and they can say what they think Lynn Haven is and what they want to see on there. There's been a couple of different proposals that people have told me. Somebody said, okay, have like a fishing scene, since Lynn Haven's so big with fishing and water. One lady who is a city resident, Connie Thomas, asked me to say that she wants whatever it is to kind of coincide with the old look of City Hall, the old Spanish, style look. She wants us to kind of stay with that same kind of thing. And I also wanted to know if anyone could tell us where the funding source is for that. I also wanted to ask, the final thing I remembered, with the fish kill that happened and the report that was going to happen, I don't know if Mr. Baker could speak to that or Mr. Kidwell if he's here. What happened with the DEP meeting? I think it was the DEP. They were supposed to have a conference call. I just wondered what was the outcome of that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Additional public commentary, Mr. Scray.
Ryan Scray, Missouri Avenue. As I talked about in the earlier workshop, apathy is a big thing around here. And earlier in the week, I posted when the agenda came out, the plans for the mural, and I thought it was a great idea. I'm all for civic pride. The reactions I got were very different than I honestly had expected. A lot of negative reactions, primarily concerned with the fiscal responsibilities. So I'm wondering, are the tanks currently to code, like the work that Onyx did? Is that exactly where the tanks need to be? And if so, when would the next time they need to be painted be? I'm still for the project of getting a mural up there, but if civic pride comes at the expense of pissing off the tax base, I don't think it's a good idea. But I'm willing to put my money where my mouth is and donate to the city. I have a check, if Mayor, if you're willing to accept it, for $100 towards the mural. Can I approach? Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe in civic pride. I believe Lynn Haven needs more civic pride, and I think, you know, if we need to come up with a way to accept other donations for those of us that want the mural, then that's your first $100 towards it. In addition, there was other comments on the post that I'd made about what people thought were irresponsible spendings, such as places to walk, sidewalks. I don't understand that. Like, we need a safer place. I don't know if you've ever driven down any of the streets that are west of 390, but when the sun's setting, every time I drive down those roads, I'm worried about hitting people because you cannot see and they're walking in the road. I would love more sidewalks. It's probably about the only thing that I'd be okay with my taxes increasing for right now, and I'm a registered libertarian, so it kind of hurts to say that. But it's something I'd be willing to pitch in on. You know, so I think we just, as a city, we just need to reevaluate. Like, you can't spend every single dollar on stormwater and roads. Otherwise, you're not going to have anything else. You're not going to have anywhere to drive to, and you're not going to have a reason to live here, even if your house is dry. Stormwater is a huge issue. The city's doing everything they can. We just passed an assessment. You know, we're going to get all the money to help work on that, but you can't divert literally every other dollar we have to those two concerns. Otherwise, there's nothing left in the city to do. And to be honest, there's not much to do, you know, here already. The city busts its back on all these events. I do a bunch of stuff as much as I can. Other people do, you know. Let's be proud of Lynn Haven and put our money where our mouths are and spend on a little bit more than stormwater and roads. Let's spend on making Lynn Haven better. So that's my contribution.
All right. Thank you. Additional public commentary, Mr. Walker.
Yeah. Rich Walker, hi. The previous meetings, first of all, stacking everything that you're going to do for a year in one afternoon and allowing the public to sit there and listen to it was a little too much. They had to absorb a lot in a short period of time. And then yet, the chairman holding the meeting demonstrated against his constituents. He excluded them from talking and asking questions. That was inconsiderate. It was picking on a certain group only because you didn't have time enough to address their issues. There are people in this town that know more about the budget than your staff. And they had questions, and they weren't allowed to ask them. You commissioners did ask questions. I think it was a disrespect in that meeting and pointed out by one of your commissioners that the citizens couldn't ask the questions. I think you owe them an apology.
Additional public commentary, yes, sir.
Johnny Bashirs, 811 Louisiana Avenue. I just have a question on point of order. Will the public be able to discuss or comment on the water tank on agenda item 13, or do we need to do it now in public commentary?
Once we get to that point, if that's something that we're voting on, then we'll open it up for public discussion at that time.
That's all I needed to know. Thank you.
Additional public commentary.
Brian Gray, 1513 East 9th Street, and I'd like the public to thank the Lynn Haven Police Department. My wife and I have had occasion to have their services at our house a couple times in the last few months, and men and women are great, response time, and everything's good. As far as the water tower goes, I've been around Lynn Haven since 1965, and I think it's a great idea, but we got a lot of things unique to Lynn Haven, Mosley Dolphin, Roberts Hall, so it's a great idea. We got some things just for Lynn Haven we put up there. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, staff. I've been gone a lot, fighting a health battle with my wife. She has cancer. My city's been fighting a battle. I want to salute all of you who have managed to try to manage in the midst of this hurricane that you endured. And I don't mean the storm Michael.
For the record,
microscope that you're working under.
and for the record, if you could state your name and address for the record.
What's that?
Could you state your name and address
Yes,
for the
James M.
record?
Oakley, military designator 1105, 1208 Massachusetts Avenue, Lynn Haven.
Thank you.
I admire you for that. The city's looking at you really hard. What you're hearing tonight is an undercurrent of there's mistrust on all levels. I think communication is so key. And I got a little small point that I want to make before we go. The inability to render feedback cancels communication. The little procedural change to have public comment come early before the meeting was a mistake. You got to make people feel like they're entitled to be. You know, when I would talk to my troops, I'd give them an idea, but I'd let them say something back to me so I could get some buy-in. And you run a good meeting, you got good control. As long as you keep good control, it's good. It's good. Keep your time right. But the city is being watched. The citizens, like I say, we don't trust anything from the federal right on down to what's happening in our backyard. So y'all perform under a microscope, okay? And if I'm around and I told you, if you need me, you holler.
Thank you.
Yep.
Additional public commentary. Thank you all for your comments. At this time, we will move on to our mayor's report. Also, let me note that currently our time clock is not working, so city manager and I are maintaining the time on our telephones. So we're still keeping up with the 3 minutes, but it's being done via telephone. Want to read this proclamation. Whereas National Disability Independence Day commemorates the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, on July 26, 1990. The ADA provides protection from employment discrimination as well as better access to goods, services, and communications for people with disabilities. And whereas the day not only celebrates the anniversary of the ADA, but it also serves several other purposes. The law first broke down barriers that individuals with disabilities faced every day, and over time, common areas became accessible to wheelchairs, including braille signs and crosswalks for the vision impaired, improving mobility and safety. And whereas beyond structural changes, the Americans with Disabilities Act motivated designers to enhance technology that often restricted a person's ability to access legal or health information with new assistive technologies, making it easier to obtain the necessary information. And whereas as accessibility improves, the world continues to change in other ways. Many of today's brick and mortar businesses are ADA compliant. However, as more and more businesses switch to online versions, their websites need to include technology that incorporates multifunctional approaches to fit every ability. And whereas we encourage all employers and designers to consider how accessible their business is to people with disabilities, the ADA empowers and encourages people with disabilities to stand up for their rights and to give shout outs to accessible businesses and organizations by using hashtag Disability Independence Day and sharing on social media. Now, therefore, by the virtue vested in me as the mayor of the city of Lynn Haven, on behalf of the city commission and all citizens of Lynn Haven, I do hereby declare this proclamation as follows: that the City of Commission of Lynn Haven calls upon all our citizens, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to affirm the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities, to celebrate the freedom the ADA inspires with forward-thinking design and technology, and to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA, and that the City Commission and all citizens of Lynn Haven do hereby recognize July 26, 2022, the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act that passed in 1990, as the National Disability Independence Day. In witness whereof, I do hereby set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Lynn Haven to be affixed this 28th day of June 2022. Is there someone here to receive this? Okay.
We'll make sure.
All right. Thank you. I'll keep my report brief. Of course, after the last commission meeting, that was our Mayor's Youth Council Day. And so we did have a chance to follow up with our Mayor's Youth Council, with it being the summertime, some of them were working that day, but we did have a nice group that was able to come out, and we discussed some of the items that were here on our agenda. We go through and we follow back up on concerns they might have and questions they have regarding public commentary, as well as particular agenda items to provide clarity for them on those particular issues. And some of them had some pretty good ideas on how we can handle some of the things. Of course, we talked about cats, and so they had questions about different opinions on that, and also had some suggestions on how we might be able to address that particular issue. So it was a very good dialogue and discussion with them in that regard. Also, City Manager and I, we meet with Mr. Ben Janke, our Economic Development Director, as well as our CRA Director, but we meet with him on the economic development side once a month now to discuss the future economic growth of Lynn Haven. I know there were some comments made earlier about having things to do here, and so that is something that is very much on our radar and that we are discussing. And so we're discussing having some surveys going out to see what are some particular venues or entertainment opportunities that we would like to see here in Lynn Haven. Also just seeing how can our government agencies that we alluded to earlier, Commissioner Tender, that we were like the EDA and others, Chamber of Commerce, how can they better serve us and our economic goals that we have? And so that's some of the things that we're working on now, is just establishing what are our economic growth goals for the city of Lynn Haven. Certainly we're a bustling community, but as people move here, what are going to be some of the things that they can enjoy while they are here? What are some activities for families and youth? We all realize that Lynn Haven as a city, we do a great job of providing those opportunities, but the question was, when we're not providing those opportunities, what are families and individuals able to do? So when we don't have our spring concert series and our fall concert series and our sports and recreations, what are our citizens able to do and enjoy within our city? And so those are some of the things that we're discussing. We're still nailing some things down, but hopefully soon we'll be able to get that survey out to you all as well. And so that's really my report for this week. Also had some, I guess all of us got different emails about different situations. I believe we were able to get the noise ordinance. Mr. Scratch sent us an email about that. I think we're able to get some clarification and get that taken care of. That right now we're just waiting on municipal code to finish codifying that for us, that we've turned all that information in. And so what we've passed, ordinance 1113, actually takes precedence over what's actually posted on municipal code right now, because that is supposed to be the one that's supposed to be updated. And so just waiting on municipal code to do their part, but our staff has done their part. And so other emails that we were able to respond back to and hear citizens' concerns. And of course, we've all received emails about the mural in the water tanks and sort of, the position that we should take on those things. And so responding back to citizens, just letting them know that we've, received that and also taking those things into consideration. So look forward to discussing that in our upcoming agenda. Also, congratulations to our new Mayor Pro Tem. Pat Perno is his rotation cycle. And so city manager reminded me of that when we were talking about our last meeting. She said, "Oh, wait, we're in a new rotation cycle now." And so thank you, Commissioner Perno, for all right, Commissioner Aldridge.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I think I have that was somewhat interesting over the last couple of weeks is, I know Commissioner Perno and I had the TPO meeting. And of course, there's always updates about projects that are going to be going on in our future up to 20 years. But I believe in 2024, we still have the funding that's there to start, the groundwork to start 6-laning 390 from 389 to 231. One of the questions that was brought up and asked, I think it might have been by Commissioner Perno, they're about to redo the bridge on 390 right before you get to North Bay Haven. And so the question was asked, with you guys redoing that bridge, are you going to make it large enough to do 6 lanes, or are we going to have to rebuild the bridge again? And of course, they assured us that they're making the bridge large enough to fit the 6 lanes. They'll just have to restripe everything when it gets time to do that. So I thought that would be good information for the public to know. So it's going to be a mess. I'm not going to lie, for a couple of years with all the homes and the school and everything, and then the road being enlarged. But at the end of the day, it's going to be great for our community as far as traffic flow and safety purposes. So just want to let everybody know the update on that. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Commissioner Aldridge, on that, was there, I guess, any discussion on basically the alternative routes for the citizens as well as getting to the schools and things like that?
Not during this meeting, there wasn't, no, but I can
Okay.
certainly bring that up at the next one. and
Okay.
ask.
Thank you. Commissioner Perno?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. At our last meeting, that afternoon, we had a morning meeting. I attended a workshop for the SUNS work group, Scale Up Nature-Based Solutions, which is part of the it's a feeder organization to the St. Joe Bay, St. Andrews Bay Estuary Program, which you'll be hearing more about. They are just starting to get their first press releases out. The estuary program, like I said, if there's a TPO for our waterways, that's exactly what it is, and it's going to be a very strong entity in the future with the projects for our watershed. Case in point, stormwater recreation areas, seagrass projects like they've done in Tampa Bay. There's our seagrass is lacking in our bay, in St. Joe Bay for sure, for scallops and whatnot. But it runs pretty deep on where they're going to set their focus and the actual getting to know the policy board and the management board and the people involved with it. It's all going to be coming to light in the next few months with their press releases and so forth. Also, Commissioner Aldridge and I attended the TPO meeting the very next day, on the 14th, and that meeting, as he stated, the question was asked about the 390 widening, and that 390, that bridge is being built along. That's in the project of the resurfacing. The resurfacing project encompasses the bridge expansion for the widening project that's going to come at the next later date. We also spoke about there's no funding for it, but it's in the 5-year plan. Widening of 389 from Baldwin Road to 390. So Baldwin Road, to 390, and we definitely spoke up about the importance of that in our city and how it should take place. And then as far as the TPO would like us to get out there for public knowledge for the FDOT, they are having a public workshop on July 14th. The DOT is having a public workshop. The public's invited, and that is where they're going to be featuring and focusing on the 5-year work plan itself. What is the 5-year work plan? What do they do, and what projects there are? So, and it's going to be at the Bay Transit on Masalina Drive, where we have our TPO meetings, and I believe it's an evening meeting. I don't know the time, but I know the date is July 14th.
It was like 3:30.
It may be an afternoon meeting like or 3:30 or 4 possibly, but it's gonna take place then, and the public's invited. They encourage everybody who wants to know about the projects going on in our area to attend that meeting. With that, I'd just like to thank everybody who's here and thank all of our city employees and our first responders. So that's my report.
Thank you, Commissioner Perno. Commissioner Ward?
Yes, I had plans to go to the TPO meeting, but unfortunately the night before I got sick, so I was unable to make it, but I plan on making the ones in the future. 25 June, I had my time with the commissioner. I was really looking forward. A lot of people coming out, giving me their feedback on the mural, and I was there by myself. So, and the last thing I have is I sent a letter. I don't know if you guys remember, back in February, I sent a letter to multiple people. One of them was Jay Trumbull, about more authority to municipalities. And I never got a response back, so I sent another email with the same thing. on the 19th of March. Still didn't get a response back. And then on the 11th of May, I sent another email, and this one had to do with Senate Bill 524. I think it was like the Fair Voting Act. And then the Fair Voting Act, in case anybody doesn't know, prohibits anywhere from federal election all the way down to local municipalities from having rank order voting. And so I sent an email asking why they did that, and also saying that I still would like to have a sit down to talk to them about more authority to municipalities. And never got a response back from that either. So I sent an email actually to, can't remember his name, Senator Hudson, that's his name. He's the one that actually wrote the bill on the Fair Voting Act, and I asked him, and he actually responded the very next business day. And I got a response. It wasn't the best response, but I did get a response. And so this past Wednesday, I went by Jay Trumbull's office, and I said, hey, what's it take to have a sit down with Jay Trumbull? Because I really wanted to talk to him about some things. And they texted him, and he was supposed to call me that day. He didn't call me, but I did get a phone call from him on Monday. And he's supposed to have a sit down with me in mid-July. So I'm really looking forward to that. And the reason I bring all this up is I want residents to know not only am I fighting to make the best decisions to help the city, but also I'm trying to find things at the state level that will help our municipality. I think there's a lot of things that happen at the state level that tie our hands, and I'm learning more and more on that stuff. And so I'm going to continue to fight that. And as you know, especially at state and federal level, it takes time to make those changes. So, but I will continue to stay involved with our state representatives in order to hopefully make those changes in the future. So that's my report.
All right, Commissioner Tender.
Thank you. Basically, I've kind of had a quiet 2 weeks. I have fielded, can't even begin to count how many calls I've received and emails I've received regarding the mural. I think everybody is kind of panicked about it. I've heard many people say, being fiscally responsible, they say they have potholes in front of their house, come fix those before we paint a mural. I've heard every story, you know, the ditches and everything like that. But I invited each and every one of them to come tonight, and I can honestly say a couple of them are here. So I'll be anxious to get into the mural discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we move to our city manager's report, I want to thank city manager and her staff. We know that our finance director, commission knows that she is out of the office right now, but thank you to city manager and staff for still being prepared to give us a presentation and allow us to go through and ask the different items that we needed to ask as it related to the mid-year budget. Hopefully that was helpful for everyone to be able to answer the questions that we did have about that. As it relates to the citizens, citizens were available to talk with our city manager post-meeting. And so whatever other questions they have, they were able to, you can send those questions to the city manager. Do know I visibly saw city manager speak with those citizens in the back who had particular questions about the mid-year budget. But as I mentioned, even at the end of that meeting, that if we were to have this on a Friday, as we had initially said, then it would not necessarily be open to the public to have discussion about that per se. So it was really primarily the focus was for us as commissioners to be able to review and to ask the different questions that we needed to ask. And whatever workshops we have usually, yes, we do want the public to have their input, but we want to also make sure that we as commissioners are able to get the questions out that we need to get out as well. But as I stated at the end of that meeting, as we were running into our charter review committee meeting, which obviously we needed all the time we needed to discuss the various referendums that came about in the recommendation for that. And so we want to thank our charter review committee as well for giving us a good report and a good presentation and giving us feedback on the various questions that we did have. And so that was the reason for not having public discussion during our mid-year budget review. so that we could stay on task and stay on time for our Charter Review Committee meeting at 4:30, and then also be able to start this meeting on time as well. But as stated at the end of that, for whatever questions the public had, they can certainly follow with the city manager about those. And then subsequently, after that meeting, many of them, those who did have questions that were here, I think we might have had maybe 2, maybe 3 citizens here for that, did follow with the city manager to ask her the questions that they needed. So thank you for that preparation and presentation, city manager and staff. And I have to thank Dawn personally. When I see her, I know that's not her thing to come out here, so I have to tell her that as well. So city manager, your report, please.
Thank you. Just a couple of updates. The smoke testing that the commission passed, I think last commission meeting, will start the first week in July. So when you start seeing smoke come up from maybe your house or some of the pipes, don't get alarmed. Remember, we are trying to fix those places where we have those sewer spills, find out where they are so we can fix all of that infrastructure that's in that. Also, we are probably about 90% complete on our design for the entrances, at the sign entrances, the welcome signs here in the city of Lynn Haven. You remember that we had a student that had the best rendition of the new signs for the city of Lynn Haven. There's a lot of rebuild going on, and we're trying to really kind of match all those things together at the same time. So that's about 90% complete. After it's complete, it'll go out for bid, so we can make sure we get things right and do it right, all in one setting. I would like to give some kudos to our building department. They are really looking at, and we know how difficult it is sometimes to go through the building process. Our building department has worked really hard to be more efficient and process driven. We're even making it a little bit more as we're looking at some software that you'll be able to actually do everything online, and we're hoping that will be more helpful to our citizens in that sense. We finally gotten some new meters in, so now we can go out and start changing some of those new meters that we have. And those citizens, I love citizens who say, I want to pay my share. And I thank you very much, and you will very soon when you get those new meters in. So thank you. 4th of July, we are down to the kind of last count of planning. We have 67 participants. That's a lot of participants. I don't think we've had that many in a very, very long time. And so if any of you have any prayers you'd like to send up that no rain comes out that day, we solicit that as well. But it will be a great day. We have a lot of things planned for that day, and I thank all of the volunteers. We've had a lot of volunteers from the citizens to help us carry out this event, and we surely appreciate it more than you will ever know. Wanted to give you an update on the city newsletter. We're in our final stages of that newsletter. The commissioners took their mug shots last week, and now those will be in our city newsletter with their contact information. And we hope that when you do receive it, it'll probably be the first latter part of July. What we have to do is make sure that it coincides with when utility bills go out, so that we don't have additional expenses with that. So we're going to try to make sure that goes out with the utility bills. It'll be on the website. We'll post it on Facebook. We just want to keep you informed, and that's just another thing that was in our visioning and planning system that we wanted to do. We are very close to implementing Tyler Notify. This is one of the things that we promised the commission about almost 3 years ago, that we wanted to put in place, that when there were road closures and there were spills or anything that was very immediate, that we would be able to push maybe a couple of buttons and send it out by text, by email, however that citizen says they want it, but get it immediately. I know a lot of boiling water notices went out after you probably drank a nice cup of water. So we want to try to get those ahead of time so that you will have that kind of information. So look for that very soon. And when you do receive that email about Tyler Notify, Don't opt out of it, because that's going to be your link to a lot of information that you would like to know about the city, particularly, emergency situations, in past due notices for your utility bill, day of cuts. All of those things are really important, and I know you want to be informed as that is said. We're going to have our visioning engagement workshop on July the 18th at 5 p.m. That will be talking about the revitalization of Florida Avenue. We want all the input from our citizens to come in. What do you think? What do you see Florida Avenue looks like? And we will not be doing this. It will be Lynn Gager with Carpe Diem, I think it is, that will do this from 5 to 7 p.m. The commissioners just will be listeners at this event, and we'll take it all in, and hopefully when we do get ready to put out to bid, we can incorporate some of those things in that RFQ that you citizens have said are important. Just like we did with the rebuild, we took every workshop and then we incorporated some of the things that you ask us to do. So we're pretty excited about how that's going to turn out. And then I got a chance to, my first actually attending the changing of command out at Tyndall. It's pretty awesome, from Colonel Mosley to Colonel Watkins, and I thought that was a pretty awesome experience. I will tell you that the citizens have been great to us and sending in really nice comments and telling us how well the city is looking and what the things that we're doing. And I say thank you to our staff. We couldn't do this without a great team of staff members everywhere to get it done. So I thank you, staff, for all that you do. And I know we will continue to work hard for you as citizens, as our city staff continues to move forward. I did schedule some appointments with some citizens about the budget, and I really want to be able to sit down and talk to any citizen about anything. So again, please contact me. We can meet and make sure that you understand everything that we're doing in the city. Thank you. Yes, okay. The warrant update list. I think most of you had already requested some of the information. Okay.
For the warrant list?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have two questions.
Yes.
Normally, we pay the Bay County Sheriff's Department $5,700 a month, and I noticed this check was $97.97.38. Do you know what that was extra for? $4,000?
I don't, Ricky will probably know. Chief, excuse me.
With a lightning storm, our server that connects us took a hit. So it will be reimbursed through insurance, but they replaced it for us.
Thank you. And then the only other question I had was Marshall Brothers Construction for $142,000, Marshall Construction.
Yes, that's for Greg or Bobby. Either one of you can answer that. I think you passed that 2 commissions ago, but you go on.
This was the lift station rehab. We had to reduce the scope. This is lift station 21 in Mowat Highlands. This was the complete renovation of that aging lift station.
Thank you.
Thank you for repairing that.
Any other
That's all I
questions?
have.
Okay. Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney?
Yeah, just a few things. It was brought up at the budget workshop. The legal ad bill did pass, but it doesn't go into effect until January 1 of 2023. So that will allow us, if we want to shift to a city-maintained, we have a website, so I'm sure there'll be more information on that coming as far as you see cities and counties going to that, but that'll be next year. And then I know it's on the consent agenda, but I just want to give a little bit more background on the Rails to Trails. I know we've been waiting for that deed for years, so we finally did get the executed deed in. So it's really a formality that the commission would need to vote on it to accept the deed so we can go and get it recorded. Along with that, if you recall, the city had an easement over the entire trail parcel. So now that we're taking ownership of everything south of 390, we did a amended and restated easement to reflect that the easement that we have now will only be for north of 390. So those items are related, and that'll be on the consent agenda. Like I said, as a formality that we accept them so we can go and record them.
So the deed's going from Marina Island to us for.
Correct. Marina Island owns it, but we have an easement over all of it. And so now they're actually deeding us south of 390. So we'll own it outright together. And then the only remaining part of the easement will be north of 390.
Any questions for our city attorney? All right, no questions. Moving on to our consent agenda. Before we make a motion, are there any things we'd like to pull off the consent agenda? And before that, before anyone makes a motion in regards to the minutes, we need to, within your motion, to add that we're amending the minutes. There are some corrections that we needed to make, and so just needed to amend those as well. And so Ms. Cecilia has already made those corrections for us, so we just need to formalize the amendment to those corrections.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Aldridge. City Manager, we call the vote.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Moving on to our new business, discussion and possible approval of engineering services for the Mill Bayou Booster Plant and Reuse System Improvements for $223,240.
Good evening.
Infrastructure Director. I think this is your first time coming up, isn't it?
It's been a while.
Yeah.
The Panhandle task order in front of you is for the engineering, the hydraulic modeling, the permitting, the bid documents, and the construction oversight of the Mill Bayou Reuse Plant. This particular plant has been on our radar since 2009. It was even in the development agreement with Mill Bayou. He's now given us the land, which is where the police and fire stations go on along with this. And this is going to consist of pipe improvements and pump improvements on lift station or reuse site 1 and a 500,000 gallon tank in Mill Bayou, along with all the apparatuses. As part of our wastewater permit, we are required to remove what we can discharging into the bay. Right now, we're averaging about 300,000 gallons a day going into the bay. So as part of our permit requirement, we got to capture it. And so this 500,000 gallon tank is going to help us. It won't help us in the wet weather, extreme floods, but it will help meet our requirement for discharge into the bay.
Any questions for Mr. Baker?
I just want to know, is there anybody here from Panhandle Engineering?
Yes,
Okay.
Stephen Price. He was, there he is.
Okay. Well, I've got some questions. It seems like to rebuild, do a booster plant, has a lot to do with that whole apartment complex there, the Mill Bayou apartment complex. And I was under the impression that that construction company was going to foot some of that bill. Is that not so?
No, this was done in 2009, before that apartment complex even.
But we're putting a booster on because this won't accommodate.
We're
correct?
putting primarily a storage tank out there to hold 500,000 gallons. But then you got to have the pumps to push it.
Right.
Yeah.
The apartment complex applied for reclaimed water. We didn't have the capacity to supply the apartment complex or the Bayou Preserve Park. So this booster station gives us a place to put the treated effluent, which then can be repumped out to the Bayou Preserve Park and anybody else who develops out that area. The apartment complex has wells for their irrigation.
Okay. Well, after I read this and I was reading in 2017, Panhandle Engineering dealt with this, according to this.
Yeah, they are
So-
the original designers of our entire reuse system.
Okay,
So they understand it better than anybody.
okay.
So it says ARPA funded. What's that mean?
The American Rescue Plan,
So that's all grant money.
that's all money. No, we have to pay none of that back. I mean, excuse me, yes, grant money, but we don't have to get reimbursed for it. We actually have
Okay.
that money.
So in the end, we won't end up paying for
That's
it.
exactly right. You guys actually passed that, I think, a couple of meetings ago, when we presented before you, what, $3.7 million? Well, that
Yes.
was.
So we actually have a grant for this 223,000? Who got us that grant?
President Biden,
Federal government.
federal government. Yeah,
From him?
yeah.
The American Rescue Plan.
It's the
Yes.
American Rescue Plan.
Yeah, we actually, if I can speak a little bit on that, we learned about it last year doing, basically a year ago, we learned about it, but there were no specifications on how it could be spent. And so we had to wait until we could get more specifications on how to spend that. And so city manager, finance director, they set that aside to make sure that we didn't spend it within our other general spending. And I was on a couple of phone calls. We were all on a couple of phone calls with the White House, and there still wasn't any specifications on how you can spend these funds. So we were primarily waiting on how we could, get direction on how you could spend these funds, because you didn't want to misuse it and then, get in trouble for that. So that's been part of the delay while we're probably just now hearing about some of the projects that are going underway with us using these particular funds. Any other questions for Mr. Baker? All right, any additional discussion from the commission?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion by Commissioner Aldridge, second by Commissioner Perno. Any discussion from the public? All right, City Manager, if you'll call the vote.
Commissioner Aldridge,
Yes.
Commissioner Perno,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Tender,
No.
Mayor Nelson.
Yes, motion passed. Agenda item number 12, discussion and possible approval to award one of the designs for the proposed water tank mural. Mr. Ferris?
Good evening, folks. I don't know that I expected, nor did you, that we would have the level of feedback on murals that we have had over the last couple of days. I think the commission asked a couple of months ago for us to explore the possibility of placing a mural on the water tank once repairs were completed. I reached out to 5 local muralists, and honestly, we could have reached out to a dozen. We have got a lot of talented artists in our community. Out of the 5, we were non-specific. Please give us an idea of what you think would look good on here and an estimated price. Out of those 5, only 2 were responsive to what we asked, and the prices were right on line. I think both of them were in the neighborhood of about $35,000, and they both submitted what they felt would be a decent concept. At this point in time, I think that's what we were after more than anything else is, hey, with the level of creativity that we have out there, let's see what they think would look good on there.
Yes. And just remember, you asked us to go on and put that in the budget, so we did put it in the budget. I think you guys probably saw that line item.
I think it was 20,000 we put in the budget.
Yeah, and I think based on the numbers that came in, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3.50 a square foot.
Do we have any idea at all what the scaffolding and the scissor truck is going to cost? Because I bet that's going to be thousands.
Well, we already have a lift and a bucket truck with the city that could probably be utilized, and I believe both of the artists submitted their cost and their paint was included, if I'm not mistaken.
Cost of scaffolding was not included.
No, scaffolding wasn't. We have a bucket truck and a lift. Now, if they need scaffolding, that's something that we would have to address.
And Ty, if you could, if I may, if you could expound, because I think if you could expound on this a little bit, because I think where the confusion is coming with the public from my emails, specifically, or people are thinking that we're voting literally on one of these 5 or 6 designs that's in the packet. And I want the public to understand, no, that is not the case. We want as much public participation, workshops, et cetera, down the road. This is just kind of the artist showing off what they can do, correct?
What, not only that, but what their vision of this water tank could be. And again, I think that was probably some poor choice of wording in the agenda document that went out, but I had no idea at the time whether or not you folks would find one of those and say, I love it, let's do it. That's the reason why I think that was worded that way.
Sure, because I think the board as a whole, and I think all of us would agree on this. We don't always agree, but I think we would on this one, that we want as much public participation as possible. That I mean, this is the citizens' buildings, this is the citizens' tanks, and we're all in agreement, city manager, mayor, all of us, we want input from the people. And you know, like we've heard from some of the public in the past, we're working on roads. As you can see, there's roads being paved. We're working on stormwater. Those things are not being neglected. We have it in the budget. And let's do some things every now and then that we're proud of. You know, one of the reasons I even ran for this position was to help rebuild Lynn Haven. And I made a promise that I wanted Lynn Haven to be better than it was before the storm, because we had an opportunity to do some things differently. And so I think that we take this opportunity to spend a little bit of money and put something that's going to be enjoyable for people for years to come. And to put it in perspective, $35,000 just to run our 2 splash pads, which I've never been to, is $200,000 to $300,000 every year in the budget for 5 months. We don't get a lot of emails about the splash pads though. So I think, you know, it's not a bad idea to spend the money and put a little bit of civic pride on 77 over there instead of 2 brown cupcake looking buildings.
Well, art is good for the soul, and I'm not sure if any of you have traveled down to Panama City, downtown area recently. I was on the mural committee when I worked over there and kind of helped shape getting that started. And man, there's some fantastic artists we have in our community, and it brings a sense of community when you can contribute like that.
I agree.
Yes, sir.
So the question I have is, you know, we had to do repairs and they painted it to get it ready for the 5-year inspection with DEP, right? So how often do we normally have to paint the water tanks? Do we have an idea?
I don't, but I can ask Greg if you'll come up 5 years, every 5 years.
All right.
The paint that we selected for this one has a 7-year warranty.
17.
We upgraded the paint, so just depends. This one went through a hurricane, so it kind of took a lot of wear. But yeah, I would say 7 to 5.
5 to 7.
And structurally, it is sound. That was one of the reasons we did what we did, is to fix up everything in it this time around.
Because right now we can leave it the way it is if we really wanted to, right?
Good.
All right. Good. So I understand the residents' concerns about money, and that's why I asked how long it lasts for. Because if it's going to last about 5 years, you know, I guess I'm thinking that why don't we wait until it's due again, and then we can get ideas maybe a year prior, and we can get it all ready. That's my opinion. You guys tell me what you think. Now I will say this. I remember Commissioner Aldridge was the first one that brought it up, and I wasn't fully on board when I first heard about it because I'm not an artsy type person. But it wasn't long after that, I went to I don't know what you want to call it, presentation. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but it was called Revitalize or Die. Ben Yankee was there. I don't know if he's here. And he had a lot of great things to say about the importance of murals and cities, how it creates your identity. Supposed to bring the community together and supposed to create pride. And it is important. It is. I absolutely agree. And so it's obviously a balance between, you know, that and money. And so I think, to me, it would be financially wise to wait until we have to repaint it again.
I think I do understand your perspective, and I think if we wait the 5 years, it probably still won't change the citizens' response in regards to us being, you know, fiduciary with the funds, because it's still going to be every 5 years that we paint it. So I don't think it's going to be okay if we wait 5 years and paint it, that we only have to wait every 10 years to paint it after that. That if we're painting it every 5 years, then it's not going to save us anything I'm just going to save us something this time.
Right.
But waiting 5 years and then have to pay in the next 5 years and the next 5 years isn't going to really, save us any money on that end of it. So if this is something that we would like to do, not necessarily saying we're voting on this today, but to say, okay, hey, once we receive more input from our citizens, have some workshops, as Commissioner Aldridge said, and see if it's something that we want to move forward with, then we move forward with it, because it is something that can certainly bring, unity to our city, be a focal point of our city as we're coming down 77, because that is that's right there in our corridor. And so those are some of the things we have to consider, that our corridor is different than other corridors, as Mr. Ferris is referring to Harrison Avenue, which is a corridor for Panama City. When you turn down Harrison Avenue, they do have the new murals, and even the businesses are buying into the idea of making sure that things are beautified and being upgraded as well. So I'm not, so certain that I would say we need to delay the next 5 years, because I'm not sure how that, is more advantageous to us from a financial perspective.
And I have some other worries, because not necessarily the mural necessarily, it's just the future. We know electric rates have gone up, we know inflation's going up, gas is going up, and seeing all that, I have worries about the budget. I think the city's doing a great job trying to keep the budget where we're fiscally responsible, but it's a tough balance. It's a tough time right now.
It is, and I don't disagree with you. It's, but I look at it also kind of like our homes, It's a tough time for everybody right now too, but I just had to spend money on my house to make it look a little bit better, if I want to do something with it in the future. And sometimes you have to invest in things, and I'm not saying we have to invest in this, but aesthetically it would be nice. I mean, it would be a nice thing. And again, I'm not saying that. Correct me if I'm not right. You said $35,000 roundabout, but really that number is not true, because it's all depending on raw materials and man hours, right? So if the mural winds up just being a third of the tank instead of the entire tank, are we looking at a third of the cost, because it's less hours, it's less paint, it's less brushes, it's less whole 9 yards?
Yeah, I would anticipate that if you just decide you want a third of the tank, proportionally, it would be less.
So
What's a ballpark project? No mural, just painting. Painting the towers. How much would it be? Like, what are we looking at?
I think it's about 25,000, because
25,000. So a lot of the emails I've gotten, there's like 35,000. We're already going to spend 25,000 to do it. It's not $35,000, folks. It's an additional $10,000, which we budgeted, which would be a great project for our city. And it could even be less depending on the size of the mural.
Right. Yeah.
So
Am I right about that, Mr. Kidwell? Is it about 25,000 if we, like the way we have it right now? I think it costs about 25,000 just to paint it.
This project included 3 tanks. There were a lot of repairs to the tanks, which affects it. And right now, that tank is at its best surface prep that you've got. So, if you wait 5 years, that's going to add some additional costs to put that surface prep back to where right now they could do a light pressure washing, go right to painting, and make your scope of your tank fit your budget.
So what you're saying is, if they do the mural now, it's going to last longer as opposed if we wait?
Correct, because we've already done all the hard surface prep. That tank is in a good spot to have something applied to it.
So what we did with the tank now was going to have to be done regardless whether they put the mural up or not.
And when we say 5 to 7 years, we typically extend that as much as we can. And it's based on the engineer's report. So when that annual inspection comes out and the 5-year tank inspection comes out and they say, okay, it's time, the tank at Water Plant 2, it's kind of tucked out of the way. It's been probably closer to 8-10 since it's been completely painted. We've done some patches and some repairs.
I guess what I'm trying to ask is, the paint we had to put on it was going to have to be put on there before, even if we decide to put the mural on anyways,
Correct. It needed to be done anyway.
Okay.
We had coating failures that were leading to cracks in the concrete which would freeze and break and create voids, which then you expose the rebar in there, and then you have structural failure. So the tank coating, that paint, is primary in keeping those small cracks sealed so you don't have those failures.
So if we waited 5 to 7 years, they're going to have to put on that base coat first anyways,
Anyway.
and then the Merle. All right.
May I say something?
Yes.
No.
I would like to explore the idea that Mr. Scray had and see if we can get more residents that would like to donate to the project.
I hate doing this. You know, I'm not a fan of this, but I'd like to make a motion to table it and have a workshop.
No, I'll second that. I was going to do the same thing.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Ward, second by Commissioner Aldridge. This time, discussion from the public. Yes, I'm sorry. I was looking at the mural.
For ignoring me. Michelle Bashirs, 811 Louisiana Avenue. Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners, Council, thank you for being here today to listen to us. Can y'all hear me? The Facebook discussion this past weekend about the water towers was quite distressing. I have a fine arts degree from Florida State in interior design. Art in all forms is an important part of life. It's beauty and expression in music, theater, dance, art, and the applied arts like design. Art should be juried by a small group of people and feedback delivered privately and positively. It should never be negative or hateful, which a lot of the stuff this weekend was. On Sunday evening, I read through around 350 posts, and the only ones that actually expressed opinions on their favorites were as follows. There were 20 for the plain, leave it as is category. The second was there were 13 votes for the city logo. The Mother Nature one, which is the tree, I call her Mother Nature. That's what it looked like to me when I first saw her. There were 7 votes for it. There were 6 votes for the oranges and 1 vote for the contemporary palm tree out of all those 350 comments. My personal thoughts about the designs are the plain one is okay, but that's like painting a house beige because it's safe. The city logo for Lynn Haven has such an egregious error in the design that it in no way represents the city. My hope is that the logo is changed at some point and the current one phased out. It's also repetitious to keep using it everywhere and not do something different. The Mother Nature spoke to me. This was the 3rd most popular. So profoundly, and then when I read the artist description, it had meaning and thought behind it, and it was an original design by a talented artist. So you know my favorite now. The oranges are really not relevant to North Florida, and Orange County already has the market wrapped up with orange painted water towers, the round ones. So this decision, in my opinion, should be made by a small qualified group if it hasn't been made already. I vote for beauty in the budget, new growth, and radical ideas. And then as I was sitting there, if you watch Hometown, it's on HGTV. This couple moved back to Laurel, Mississippi, and has revitalized the city. But the very first thing Aaron did was paint a mural on the side of a building, and that was what started the revitalization of Laurel, Mississippi. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Additional public commentary?
Johnny Bashirs, 811 Louisiana Avenue. My wife and I seldom agree on things, but we have pretty good agreement on this. I just have a couple of points or things that I think you should consider. I know you're talking about workshops in the future and what have you. Michelle mentioned a small group of qualified people maybe to look at this, and I think maybe that's the direction you may want to take. either, I've not seen minutes from a beautification board. I don't know if you've still got the beautification board, but if you create an advisory board and set out some parameters for people to be on that advisory board, let them come in and put together a proposal for y'all to look at, and then maybe have a workshop with the community at large. I think that may be a better route to go than just having workshops and people like me coming up and bending your ear all the time. That way you can kind of guide it a little bit. I will say that the city of Lynn Haven, if all a city is supposed to do is collect garbage and pave the streets, that's not where I want to live. I mean, you cut it down. I hadn't heard anybody complaining today anyway about how much the fireworks display is going to cost, how much the 4th of July parade is going to cost. I don't need that. I probably won't go to the parade. I may not. Well, I probably will. But anyway, there's a lot of things that have to be done that make the city the city. And this is one of those things. You talk to all the businesses along the Highway 77 corridor, and we talked overlays. We're trying to get them to beautify their property, and then we're going to say, no, we're not going to do that. The city's not going to participate in the beautification of the city. That's up to the individuals. I don't think that's where we need to be. I think this is a good project, and I think it really should go to an individual board, advisory board that y'all create, and let them make the suggestions and then hold your workshops. Thank you.
Thank you. Here, and then Mr. Scray. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Your turn, and Mr. Scray after that.
Mitchell, 1208 Massachusetts. I love what I'm hearing, the exchange of ideas and the willingness. A couple of things. This young man that wrote a check, that's a great idea. Why not put a bucket in every business? If they want to contribute 50 grand, we'll get it. It lets the community buy into that. I think what we want to resist, and I'm not picking on you, we don't need federal funding money things. I don't want 35 to turn into 25 because it's slid over under another budget. Let's be open with our citizens. You know, just because it's already budgeted for 35 and you can do it for 25, it's still $35,000 mural.
No,
You did.
Let
You
me
said
be
that.
clear. I said, what would it cost for the paint job that has to be done anyway?
But when you said that, I'm
People
not
are
picking
saying
on you.
that
I'm
35
not
for the
picking
mural.
on you.
It's not 35 for the mural. sir.
But I know that. Okay.
As long as you know.
Well, but the numbers that the people are hearing are $35,000 for the mural.
And that's the point I was making.
So
It's not
you want to make
35.
sure,
The
and I
darn thing needs
commend,
to get painted.
I commend the drivers here because you're driving it in a way that's such that it's going to come out like that. But you want to resisting the ideas to federalize this. One thing we don't want is to federalize our city. You know, people want to know if it's 10, it's 10. If it's 35, it's 35. Mural's a good idea, and a lot of people are hurting in the mural. They don't want a mural. So, but you can't make everybody happy in the city. You can't. I say we look toward I'm going toward death. We need to look for those that are coming from birth and make them happy because they're going to be happy longer. Okay? The dead guy, he can stay unhappy for a long time if he wants to. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Scray.
Ryan Scragan. I wasn't sure how the vote was, or the motions were going to go. That's why I wanted to do everything I did earlier during public commentary. But I'm just kind of going to double down on where I'm at. You know, I don't envy you guys being up there. You know, if I was sitting in your seat, I probably would have gone the direction Commissioner Warwick started with, and that Commissioner Aldridge seconded. Let's kind of get through the semantics of it a little bit. But I really like the idea that Mr. Bashir proposed of setting up an advisory board, committee, whatever, of qualified individuals within, you know, from within the community to kind of explore the final design of the mural if you guys want to go through with it. I think at some point I would like to see y'all go through with it. I think you're gonna, like I said earlier, you're gonna upset some people. You know, it is what it is. I think in the long-term gain, it's for the city, it's necessary. As long as you guys do it, you know, with full understanding of all the possible outcomes, you know, I'm still for the idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put up $100 check for it. So.
Thank you. Additional commentary?
Jody Moore again. I spoke earlier in public commentary because I wasn't sure I'd get a chance to speak on the agenda item as we discussed. I just want to say, you know, call it mural gate. Somebody else came up with that word. I'm for beautification, as I said earlier. I think it's a very good thing to have. I love Panama City. If anybody's ever driven through Colquitt, I think that's the town that has all the murals as you drive along, and it's beautiful. It is a little distracting, so you kind of have to pay attention to the road and the murals too. And I do think beautification is very important, but I think people want to know what the total cost is going to be. I kind of disagree with the Bashirs over here. I think that the community should get input, but then, that's fine, have it come back to a committee. The beautification board would be good for this. It's in the CRA too, I believe, so the CRA could have some input in that, but the people want to be heard. And I think that's when people get upset, is when they feel like they're not being listened to. So I know the beautification board just met. I don't think they had a quorum though, so they weren't able to, but maybe come back to them, let them drive the bus on this kind of thing. And again, if I could, and I'm willing to donate towards this too. I haven't brought my checkbook today, but I think a lot of people would be willing to donate, for this if they feel that strongly about it. Again, if this isn't a donation-driven type thing, where is the money come from? Is it just the general? I know you said it was budgeted, but is it just the general funds? Or, what pot is it coming out of, I guess is the question.
So you're asking, where's that money budgeted? Is that the question you're
Yes.
asking?
Yeah.
That's in the water fund. It's where he actually had his painting and structural. So everything is in there because it would be under his purview.
Under Public Works?
No, under public utilities.
Oh,
That's
utilities.
Water tanks.
Okay.
over with.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Additional public commentary? Yes, sir.
Well, my apologies, Steve Novikowski, Dundee Lane, Mount Highlands. Well, I don't really much care for the fact of the mural or see the excitement in it. I think that we understand that the commission has been elected by the voters to make decisions. And there's no way that we're ever going to make everybody happy. And in this type of case, whether there's a mural or no mural, I don't care, or wrong wording, right? Because I know that if it's something that I'm not happy for, but the commission who's duly elected to make these types of decisions decides that's the direction. I think that's the way that we need to really go, is that sometimes too many cooks spoil the cake. So thanks for your dedication and your work and what you're doing and trying to be able to keep the funds down on it. But I think that we have a great city right now and we're on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public commentary?
And
Thank you all for your commentary.
well, no, I just had,
Yes.
if we're going to do a workshop, or I'm going to rescind my second, let's have parameters on what in other words, our workshop, can I get clarity from you on your motion? I mean, is it just going to be what we're doing right now again? In other words, having a workshop, we tell residents to come out and the same residents come out and then we go through this again? Or do you want the workshop to be, sorry guys, or do you want the workshop to be more, what do you want the tank to look like? What do you envision? I mean, because I'm in agreement with that. Get the public out, let them say what they would like to see or what their ideas are for beautification, but not necessarily, I'm for this and I'm not, because we could just put up an online poll for that. I mean, the residents can always reach out to us. I know you like having the workshops for the residents, but they can always call, email, text, come to us after meetings. But if there's parameters other than I like this and this is why, or I don't like this and this is why, and we spend an hour and we don't make any headway, as y'all were saying a minute ago, we make no headway doing that, then I'm not necessarily for that. What are your thoughts on it, Commissioner?
I actually, I'm wondering, I know I already made the motion, but you made me feel so good today. Now you just threw me off, Pat.
Come on, buddy.
I told you you were excused from the meeting.
But the beautification board, do we think that would be a good avenue to use for them to take the ball?
I kind of do, yes. I kind of liked those ideas when I heard that, to be honest.
I don't know the answer to that question.
I'll be right.
Oh, okay. You know, and so if we do, I don't know if I can
I guess one of the concerns, not that I'm against the beautification board, but would it actually have the input that we would be looking for from the, if we're talking about having input from the citizens, are the demographics of the beautification board diverse enough as far as youth, young adults, seniors? Is it diverse enough in order to have an eclectic input on what the mural should look like? That would be my only concern about just having the beautification board. I don't know all the members on the beautification board, but that would just be my only concern, saying, okay, let's let the beautification board do this. Would we have that diversity of input that we're seeking when we're saying having others to come and have their input?
So can they do that with the beautification board, that people come in and provide inputs?
Yes, it's a public meeting. They can come in and they have a workshop, a meeting, then they have an agenda, and it should be open up to the public.
I don't know if I missed your point.
Yes, they can do that, but it would be similar to what we do, which is the public comes up and either we listen to them or either we don't.
So can I withdraw my motion? He has to agree to it, I think.
I withdraw my second, because I see where you're going, and I agree with you. I think it would be better funneled off to some of the boards that we have, than,
Was that
and then they
okay?
can bring results to us.
Can I withdraw my motion as long as he's in agreement, right?
No, right.
Second.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
take my second.
So then I make the motion to refer this to the beautification board to get inputs from the public, the youth, and then bring it to the commission.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Commentary from the public? Yes.
Hello, my name is Sarah Griffith. I'm actually one of the artists that submitted a design. Whether I get it or not, everybody seems to really want this mural now. Downtown did not go through a workshop. They had the Jason Kretzer down at the City Arts. Nobody knew the designs except for the business owners and like a few select people in the city. They handpicked artists. Everyone was not reached out to. And Ty Ferris could probably get with Jason Kretzer and figure out grants. A lot of that was covered by St. Joe and several other places. So the money doesn't have to be a massive issue. There are massive amounts of grants out there for art. So if everybody's concern is the money is out there for stuff, for beautification, for cities specifically. So.
Thank you.
That's that.
And I know there's a motion on the table. Maybe we can just table this for discussion later on. Once we get a better idea. I mean, because ideally today was for discussion. And one of the things to keep in mind, and I want this to go on record for the public, the staff didn't bring this to us. We as the commissioned the staff to go out and do this. And so we can't let the community beat up on the staff or the city as if they came up with this idea of going out to spend this money. It was us who said, hey, go out and do this for us and bring this back to us. But right now, I think our minds are just in, in different places. I mean, this is our third meeting today as well. So I know you've all made a motion and I can't, necessarily make motions or anything, but, my thought would be just tabling this for just further discussion until we can all just sort of get an idea of what we think, how we should, sort of move forward with this. Let city manager, staff get together, come up with some more ideas, not necessarily mural ideas.
As far as financially is what you're talking about.
Financial ideas and even ideas on how to move forward with the process, not necessarily the mural itself or the rendering itself, but how to move forward with the process of selecting the mural, the financing of it. And so, put it back to our staff and allow them to allow them to finish the project that they've started until we can sort of run that out, would be my thought.
Well, I mean, Sarah made a good point that Panama City's, they've ridden this horse already. So all we have to do is we should be able to get with them and their staff, they're friends of ours, and see, okay, what did you learn from this? What's the pros, what's the cons, what should we do, what shouldn't we do, and see if we can't get some guidance from them. That's not a bad idea either. So we may have to rescind our second motion and second.
So
I
is
guess
this some type of Is this
Y'all are
some
really
type
working
of-
Robert Rules of Order today, man.
Am I on candy camera?
Yes.
It's getting late.
This is gonna be, it's gotta be in the record book. I guess I would like to withdraw my motion again.
I will withdraw my second again.
Thank you.
All right.
Meeting adjourned.
Together.